What's up, everybody? In today's video, we're going to be going over the book "Can't Hurt Me" by David Goggins. Now, this is one of the most popular books from. I think it came out in 2018 because David Goggins went on Joe Rogan, but he'd also been on all these other podcasts advertising this book, and he's also just really well known in the motivation world. If you're watching this in 2020, I took a break because I lost my dad, and this is like a really good book for me coming off of that. I downloaded the book as an audiobook, which I would recommend everybody does because the book is like 15 hours or 13 hours on audiobook. And it's definitely worth it because there's some added material as he goes back and forth with the ghostwriter or his writer that he used for this book. And the person that wrote this book is also the person that does the audiobook, but David Goggins chimes in every now and then on the audiobook. I'd recommend it just for that because David Goggins doesn't have a podcast as far as I know. So this is like as close as you're going to get to actually listening to a David Goggins podcast. And if you want to see more of David Goggins stuff, you have to go to his Instagram or his Twitter, because he doesn't really put out too much content other than those platforms. And I meant to read this book when it first came out, but I think then I thought like I already figured out David Goggins, and he's just this hoorah guy that says go forward no matter what. Plus, he's also very contrarian, and that's going to turn some people off from him. He wants you to buy this book obviously because he put it out, but he also says don't follow me, don't listen to me, don't be like me, which is really confusing. Like 1 second he'll say don't listen to me, and the next he says that he's the toughest guy. The next he says that he's the weakest. He's always going against the grain, even going against himself. So that's partially the reason I didn't get this book when it first came out. Plus, I feel like I had already heard so much about him. He was on Joe Rogan's podcast, James Altucher's podcast, and I just didn't get around to reading or listening to the audiobook, but I finally made some time, and it was definitely worth it. I recommend it to anybody, and I'm going to tell you the reasons why I recommend it. But basically, David Goggins is an ex-Navy SEAL. That's what the cover of this book is, a picture of him in his Navy SEAL outfit. And he wasn't only a Navy SEAL, he did other things, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But he was a Navy SEAL, and another thing he's well known for is he's an ultra marathon runner. And if you look at any of his videos on social media, you'll always see him running. And that's because he's an ultra marathoner. But I looked up his racing stats. I don't think he'd run an ultra marathon in a long time, and that's because he had some injuries, which he talks about in the book. And his main goal that he states in the beginning of the book is to show the human potential. Like a lot of people think that humans are only meant to do a certain amount. We're only meant to work a 9 to 5. We're only meant to do a certain amount of things. And his main thing is to show that that's not true and to continue pushing forward and to push the limits of human potential. And he cites a study from MIT that says that our genetics determine how much we can produce as individuals. And he said, no, that's not true, that most people are only operating at a certain percent. He gives out 40% later on in the book, but we can go to 100%. And he's proof of that just because of where he came from and then where he went to. And if you buy this book looking for the specific steps of how to be like David Goggins, you're not really going to get it. It's really just, he provides insights in this book, but he doesn't give specific like psychological background to the way he operates. It's just to be mentally tough. And he provides information on how to be mentally tough throughout the book. And some of the things he uses that'll make you reshape your thinking are the following. Like here's some few things that I wrote down. Like, do you want to reach the end of your life not knowing who you are? That's like a big thing that he talks about in the book. Like he talks about so many people reach their deathbed and they don't know their limitations. And like I said, my father recently passed away. And that's why this book was really good for me, because it's true. Like I don't want to be on my deathbed and think of all the things that I could have done. You want to go there, go to your deathbed, and know that you pursued all the things you wanted to. But it's okay if you don't do everything in your life that you thought you would do, right? We all don't know the moment that we're gonna die. Well, a lot of us don't know that moment. So, but you don't want to just half-ass your whole life and then wondering what could have been. You don't want to save up too much money and never spend it. And I'm all for saving, but like you have to do things strategically. You have to execute your life in a certain way so that you're fulfilled throughout your life. But that doesn't mean to live in excess. And he talks about that a lot in this book as well. But another thing he says along the same lines of being on your deathbed is the second you're born, you also become eligible to die, which is like pretty grim. A lot of what he says is grim, but it's true. You become eligible to die, so prepare to die by living each day to the fullest. But not only each day, like each moment of each day. And that's what he's saying. Constantly push yourself. And the constant pushing of yourself will get you to reach a different level in your life. Another thing he says is, are you okay dying today with what you have accomplished? Goes along the same lines as what I just said. Another motivating thing he does is he talks about he was super fat and depressed and he lost over 100 pounds to join the Navy SEALs. He ran a 100-mile race with no training. And another thing he says is you aren't guaranteed an easy life, so stop thinking that way. I'll go into that a little bit more in a little bit. And then he says, he also, another thing he provided insight into is stretching is a key to balancing your life. He also provides challenges in this book, which I'll go into in just a little bit. He has a taking souls concept, and this is just being ruthless in your life. And people that you see as challenges or are making things difficult for you in life, you would take their soul, not literally, but you would take their soul by outperforming them. Cookie jar concept is something else he covers that's motivating. It's make a list of all the things you've accomplished in your life and refer to them anytime you get super down on yourself. Anytime you get super depressed, you should refer to this list in your cookie jar and pull out things that you've accomplished to show yourself what you're capable of. He also talks about an accountability mirror. This is where you put Post-it notes on the mirror and you keep yourself accountable. And I'll go into that a little bit more. Another thing that he says is really good is you can't always count on motivation. You can't always count on motivation to get things accomplished. You have to work through pain and work through boredom. And another thing he says is it tells you to be your own hero. Don't look to him to be your hero. Don't look to other people to be your hero. You have to be your own hero. And the way this book is written is it goes throughout his life and focuses on certain areas. The book starts out in his childhood. He tells you how terrible his childhood is. And I think the main reason he does that is to show how he overcame that. He faced racism, he faced beatings from his father, and he still overcame that. And he doesn't blame racism for anything in his life. He tells people, don't blame things in your life. Just keep moving forward, keep progressing. All those things are just obstacles to be overcome. After his whole childhood era, he goes straight into his military career, mainly how he got into the Navy SEALs. He had to go through BUDS training. BUDS training is the Navy SEALs training. He went through that 3 times. And the reason he went through it 3 times is because of some physical problems that he had. And when I was listening to this audiobook, I was really astonished how many times he got injured. And I was like, he should have taken a break and assessed all his injuries and realized why they were occurring. But he gets to that later in the book when he talks about stretching. And I'm like, it took him until his body broke down, which happens later in the book, to figure out the reason he had all these physical problems. But in the beginning, he has like a ton of physical problems, and that's why he has to like drop out of the Navy SEALs training for a little bit and come back. But he overcomes that and he makes a Navy SEALs, and that's kind of one of the biggest stories in here is he just completely trounced Navy SEALs training, and he did real amazing in his final one. Otherwise, he was going to get kicked out of the military, and that part was pretty amazing. But the part where he has like a ton of injuries is like a little bit ridiculous. It's like at some point you have to realize why you have these same injuries over and over. And then after the military part, he goes into his ultra marathoning career. And ultra marathons are like obviously marathons that are bigger than 26 miles. And he did a lot of these races, but that's the next step in the book. And then after that, he goes into sort of the second part of his military career and then his pull-up record, because he also set a pull-up record. The pull-up record's since been broken, but it's pretty astonishing. He did over 4,000 pull-ups. It's crazy to think that this guy runs over 100-mile races constantly in this time period covered in this book, and he also does over 4,000 pull-ups. It's kind of insane, but that's what it goes to show. He's this regular guy, and he just sets his mind to something, he accomplishes it. And the book tries to show how David Goggins was created by his life experiences. And it does a pretty good job of that. I mean, there's some improvements that the writer could have done, but it does a pretty good job of that. This book is really motivating. It just makes me want to consume more David Goggins content. And I think that David Goggins does need to do another book where it's just him just yelling at people or motivational quotes from him, because some of the stuff he says on social media is awesome. And it would be awesome to have that all in like a podcast or an audiobook or quotes in a book format. So now let's go over some of my insights. The main thing in this book is it shows human potential and how all of us leave some in the tank. That's the main thing I got out of this. And I think the main mechanism that David used is he reached the low point in his life. And if you've read other books by like Tony Robbins, he says we don't make drastic changes in our life until we reach the lowest point. And I think that's what happened to David Goggins. And he just learned how to keep ratcheting it up once he reached that low point. And the low point is when he became extremely fat, like over 300 pounds. And after that, he just made a drastic change to his life and decided to join the Navy SEALs. And he wasn't satisfied. And that's what he tells people throughout the book. Don't be satisfied where you're at. Keep moving forward. And also don't get comfortable. This means don't consume items that make you comfortable. Don't eat fast food, junk food all the time, and don't watch TV. The second your mind gets weak or soft on you, you need to start pushing against it. And that's something else I think that's the main mechanism that he uses to keep pushing himself. Whenever he feels weakness or comfort, he gets up and he goes running. And that's a lesson I would tell people. If you want to be like David Goggins, you need to pick an area in your life that you really like and you have goals in, and you need to push that to the limit or past the limit. And anytime you feel like you're letting up on yourself, you just need to push more. Anytime you feel comfort in that area, push for more. Whatever you think is possible, you need to even push past that, because he was obsessed with running. He was obsessed with physical fitness. And he could have been okay running marathons or 5Ks, but no, he ran ultra marathons, and he set up a full 4,000 pull-up record. And he set up that pull-up record because he couldn't run anymore. He had so many injuries he couldn't run. But he's like, I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep doing something physical. And so he did pull-ups. So what I would tell people is find something you like to do, whether it's physical fitness, and use that hobby to push yourself past the limits. Go all the way in on that. So and another thing that I would say is go all the way in so that you can strengthen your mind. Your goal isn't to break records. It's to push the limits of your mental toughness. But that's not the only reason to push yourself in these areas. You push yourself to increase your mental toughness, right? But you'd also, a lot of us get into trouble when our mind, a lot of us get into trouble when we have too much time on our hands. And David Goggins chose physical fitness to get out of his mind. He uses that as a form of meditation. And that's something you can do if you do something similar. You can use this to get out of your mind. For example, when people don't have anything to do, that's when you go on social media. That's when you get in your feelings. And the more and more you get into your feelings and get on social media and eat bad food, you tell your mind it's okay to feel that way. But if you constantly push and you don't give your mind time to focus on that, then you can just be mentally tougher. But also you could probably save money, accomplish more things, because think about it. If you're out there running 10 miles a day, that's hours upon hours where you're not at home spending money online shopping, eating junk food, doing bad things, doing negative things, thinking negative thoughts. So that's another benefit, I think, of just pushing yourself to the limit in a useful category in your life. Another key concept that I really learned from this book is you can't work only when you're motivated. David Goggins says that it's easy to do things when you're motivated. It's hard to do it when you're not. And you have to learn how to work even when you're not motivated. So even when you feel like garbage or you're bored, that's when you should work, because that's where you're going to make tons of progress on mentally toughening up your mind. And I mean, this is in tons of other books like Deep Work, which I haven't fully read that book, but I know what's in there because I've heard it on so many podcasts and stuff. And other books that are about focusing, you have to just sit down and do the things that you don't want to do. Because what you're doing when you do that is you're teaching your mind that I'm not going to give in to you. I'm not going to let you get weaker. I'm going to build on the toughness. And that's also when creativity kicks in. Creativity doesn't kick in only when you're motivated. Creativity kicks in when you're there working and it's tough. When you force your mind to think, that's when the good things come to you. And I'll talk about that in another book that I'm going to be reviewing pretty soon. So make sure to subscribe to this channel.